Good morning. It is Thursday, September 28th. Thanks for joining us on Up to the Minute. I'm Dr. Lana Pigow, HCC Northwest Director of Communications. And with me this morning is Montrose Cunningham, HCC Northwest Community Outreach Coordinator. Good morning, Montrose.
Good morning, Lana. How are you today?
I'm doing well. You want to tell everyone how they can find us on social media?
Yes, we're live on the Houston Community College District Facebook page, not HCC, and YouTube. We're also on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn, and on HCCTV at noon, 5, and 10 p.m., Monday through Friday.
Yep, they should be able to find us.
Yes.
Well, today you might call our game day. For Thursday Family Day, we'll hear about the Highland Games during the Scottish Gathering. Good morning, Katie. We'll be right with you.
Glad to be here.
But first, we're going to welcome another Ewen Family Endowed Chair Award winner who wrote the book on gameplay and learning. Welcome back to the show, Richard. We also want to say that you're the president of National Economics Teaching Association. So recently, 5 HCC faculty received this year's Ewen Family Endowed Chairs for Teaching and Learning Excellence Awards. It was created by our own Dr. Kurt Ewen, former Chief Transformation Officer and Vice Chancellor, and his family. So Richard, congratulations on your award. You say you're writing a book. Tell us about it, starting with the difference in games versus gamification.
Sure. So the difference between those two things is that gamification is when you take something that's already something academic and you turn it into a game, whereas games are something designed ostensibly to teach something inside of a game, right, that wouldn't otherwise be academic. And so the book is actually a three-pronged attack: games, simulations, and role-playing. And it's just a reflection on a couple of decades of my work, of things that I've already been doing in the classroom, and then coming up with new ways to infuse them and engage them in a physical classroom and also in a virtual classroom.
So who is your target audience then?
Yeah, so the target audience is actually professors. Yeah, professors. Professors who've just started their careers, or professors that have been veterans that have been teaching for several decades. And these are professors who are really interested in trying to go beyond the chalk and talk, the usual lecture-based method. So that's the key audience.
So why does demand and relevance matter?
Yeah, so I think the idea here is that you don't want students to just passively learn economics by just watching it or working on problems, but actually being immersed in it. And that's what the games and the simulations and the role-playing exercises allow students to do. That is, actually be actual participants and active participants where they're actually doing economics rather than just thinking about it in theory or looking at a graph or a table or solving a problem. And they get to interact with other students. So it creates a sense of community. And some of the skills that they learn are not just purely economic, but they're cooperative strategies, they're ways of collaborating and learning how to work in teams, which are clearly soft skills that are transferable no matter what your major is.
So we're all learning about Gen Z. I've got I call them Zoomers. I've got two Zoomers at home they can do things very quickly technologically. So who are you trying to reach and why?
Yeah, so it's definitely targeted for the students that are Generation Z students. And what's unique about Generation Z students is this is the first generation of students that are fully immersed in the online world, that came into the world this way. And we've never had a generation quite like that, right? And I think there's several things that distinguish them from other learners, from other generations. First is their desire for authentic connections. And then the other is just applying theoretical concepts to practical scenarios. That's really what students want to see. And interaction, that's a big deal. And I think lastly, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, and helping them bridge the gap between what they're learning in the classroom on a pure academic level and professional success. In other words, how is this actually relevant in their jobs and their future careers?
Yeah. So what is the main purpose of your work?
Yeah, so the main purpose is to try to really start a revolution in teaching of economics. And, there are other educators that have thought about these things a long time ago. And I think the ball kind of got rolling right around the turn of the century, around 2000, 2001. There started to be a lot of literature in the economics profession about how to engage students. And some have focused on the simulation, some on the games, some on the role playing, some on economic experiments, but none sort of had this holistic approach encapsulating all three. And so what I really would like to see is my dream come true, that professors actually start making this a part of their regular curriculum, not just as a sort of cameo appearance in during the semester, but this being a regular part of how they conduct their classes.
So what are the student takeaways then?
Yeah, so the student takeaways would depend, of course, on what the particular game is that you have in place. And I'll give you an example. So one of the games that I designed has to do with the framing heuristic and the anchoring heuristic. And this actually is something that's cross-disciplinary. So it borrows from the field of psychology. And of course, that provided the pathway to a new field in economics known as behavioral economics. And so one of the games that I've designed has to do with the real estate market. So what we have is actual listings from HAR.com, Houston Area Realtors.com. You take those listings of homes in real neighborhoods, real live listings of homes that are actually up for sale, but you do something tricky. You change the prices. You either inflate the prices significantly or you deflate the prices significantly. Students don't have access to their computers during this exercise, so they can't look these things up. We mask the addresses, all right, but we do show the neighborhoods. And then half the students in the classroom are buyers and half of the students are sellers. And so, in 2-minute rapid fire rounds, students go around the room trying to find a house. And if they can't, negotiate a sale, then they move on. And what we discover here is, does the benchmark or the anchoring of that price have a significant impact on the final negotiated price? And it turns out it does. And for students to actually see this happen in the classroom rather than just read about it is really quite amazing. And then we reveal the real list price. And then we notice that the final negotiated price doesn't have very much to do with the list price. It has to do with the anchoring price, the price that we showed them, not the actual price that the real seller was listing it at. And so we show pictures of the home, both the outside, the inside. We show the square footage, how many bathrooms it has and bedrooms it has. And students love it. And sometimes they eat up an entire class period. And so one of the things is to try to get over professors' angst about being too jealous about their classroom time, being robbed from lecture. But that's the whole point, is that lecture doesn't have to be front and center. We're not kicking it to the curb necessarily, but it's no longer the whole idea of the sage on the stage, because it's really about the students, not about the professor.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I much rather would have preferred doing that as opposed to playing Monopoly, which is how I learned to buy real estate. What evidence is there that this works, that gaming works?
That's a good question. And it turns out there's tons of evidence. In fact, some of the evidence comes from colleagues of mine who served on the National Economics Teaching Association board, one of whom is Linda Gent, and her colleague, Alan Grant, They wrote a very funny book. Well, I should say it's a serious book, but with a funny title. The funny title is The Economics of Seinfeld. And actually, she was interviewed on National Public Radio this past summer about it. They jointly wrote a paper, and I believe it's in the American Economic Journal, or it might have been Journal of Economic Perspectives. I've since forgotten which journal it is. But in their work, they discover that indeed these types of activities, in their case, they weren't doing necessarily game simulations and role playing. They were using pop culture to teach economics to students. And this is something that Linda Genn has presented many times at our economic conferences and other colleagues as well. So not only her work, but the work of Gary Becker, who, of course, has won the Nobel Prize in economics from the University of Chicago. There's work there that proves unequivocally that activities that are immersible, where students are actually active participants in doing something in the classroom, not just filling out worksheets, but taking on a real economic role or a real economic agent, that this makes a difference in terms of student learning outcomes. And that's really, in the end, what we care about. We want students to actually learn the objectives that we say they're supposed to learn in our courses. Not just pay lip service to it. And I think these kinds of activities serve the purpose of achieving that goal.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So thank you, Richard Gosselin, HCC Economics Professor, Ewen Family Endowed Chair Recipient. We'll have your info in our post after the show. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here. Take care. Best wishes.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I know, right?
I wish they had done that when I was in college.
know. Playing games in college, that would have been really cool.
Yes, because as he mentioned, chalk and talk, that was it. That was it. All right. Well, moving on to Katie Hill, Salado Museum board member, which is hosting its annual Scottish gathering and leader of the Bonniest Knees Contest. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here.
This event in Salado is in early November, but we want viewers to get a jump start on making plans. So let's start with the details, such as when and where it will be held.
That is so thoughtful. We are in Salado, Texas, which is about 3 to 3.5 hours from Houston. And it is always held the second weekend in November, which this weekend falls right along with Veterans Day.
Okay. And what made the museum do this every year? What's the backstory?
So if you remember your seventh grade Texas history, there were several impresarios like Stephen F. Austin who brought settlers in Texas in the early 1800s. The impresario that settled this area of Central Texas was Sterling Clough Robertson. He and his son have very similar names, so I'm always getting them confused. But he brought settlers from Tennessee into Central Texas, and most of those settlers were of Scottish ancestry, including the impresario himself with the name Robertson. And so one of his granddaughters in the 1961, said, let's hold a gathering and celebrate our ancestry, learn about the tartans and the clans and the athletics. And it's been going on every year since then. So I'm not an economist, but I think it's 62 years now.
Okay. And thank you for helping me brush up on my Texas history, because it's been a minute. So now, what is the calling? You had mentioned the clans. What is the calling of the clans?
So the gathering officially starts on a Friday evening, where all of the clans just declare that they're here and they are in attendance. And it's actually a really beautiful ceremony. They march with torches, with their kilts and their tartans on. Right at sunset, they march from the museum down to Salado Creek, and they circle up next to a giant old oak tree. And someone says a prayer, and then the clans just start announcing themselves, and it gives me goosebumps every year. I did not grow up going to any Scottish gatherings, but turns out we're all a little Scottish, and it's a really powerful ceremony.
Okay,
So
and
that officially launches the gathering.
okay, and that kind of leads me into my next question, which is a little more detail about the Scottish ancestry in attendance.
Yeah, when it started, there were about 24 clans who were coming, and now we have between 40 and 60 clans attending every year, including Scottish people that come all the way from Scotland to our little town in the middle of Texas to celebrate their culture. So everyone from the Mackenzies and the McIntyres to the Douglases and Keiths, it's a really neat gathering where people can just learn more about their genealogy. This year, we actually have a genealogical expert coming on Friday afternoon for anyone who's curious about finding out more.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about the Highland dance and as being an important part of the festivities with the bagpipes. And
So, Scottish and Highland dance is really interesting. A lot of it derived from these, like after a battle, if they won, they were celebrating, and the men would break out and dance. And so, several of the dances incorporate a sword or a shield. There's one where they put a sword or a scabbard in a cross shape, and the dancers are required to dance around this very dangerous implement without touching it. So we have several dance schools in our state, and some of them come and they compete against each other.
okay. And of course, we're talking about games today. So what about the authentic athletic games that they do?
This is a really big deal. And actually, I know that there's a Scottish gathering and Highland Games in Houston very soon. But the games are all derived from really the agriculture of Scotland. They are pitching bales of hay and throwing rocks and just ways for men really to show off their strength and agility. And now the games are also they also have a women's category, so everyone can compete, and it's really interesting, really fun to watch, and it's very like truly a skillful endeavor.
Okay. And finally, talking about men showing off, what about the Bonniest Knees? That's got to be about men in kilts. So who judges and how are they decided?
Yeah, who doesn't love a man in a kilt? So every year we recruit men from all of the different clans that are interested in being declared the Bonniest Knees. The judges are usually women, and they are always blindfolded. And this is my favorite competition of the whole weekend. I've never actually been a judge, but it's very fun to watch. And the judges are looking, they're making their choices by, since they can't see anything by touch, they're looking for musculature, boniness, body hair. I'm not exactly sure what they're looking for, but
Mhm.
it's a lot of fun.
How are the judges selected?
Oh, I actually I've never actually had a judge volunteer. That's actually, yeah, I spend all of Saturday morning trying to recruit the judges.
Ah, okay. Okay. And then can you tell us a little bit about the chocolate and whiskey?
Well, we actually have a whiskey sponsor for the
Yeah.
games. It's, a wonderful, wonderful piece of Scottish culture is that whiskey that they all just love and want to taste. Our games are actually, and our gathering are actually at the Thomas Arnold Elementary School. We're a small town, and that space actually has the most ideal layout for all of the games and clans and tents and vendors. And so we don't actually allow alcohol at the games.
Okay. Well, thank you, Katie Hill, Salado Museum board member, which is hosting its annual Scottish gathering and leader of the Bonniest Knees Contest. We'll have your info in the post after the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Wow, that sounds like fun, doesn't it?
Yes.
One of my favorite shows is Outlander, and they did one episode, they did a calling of the clan, and it was so cool. Just like Katie described it, is how they did it. So I live with somebody who's part Scottish. He's from the Cochrane clan, and our dream is to do a Scotch distillery tour in Scotland, which we're going to put together at some point, I'm sure.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Talking a lot about Scotch and whiskey today.
Okay, so let's move on to news, events, and announcements. The HCC and NASA Inventathon explores the depths of space technology and its potential to drive Earth's sustainability. Students can form teams or go solo to delve into coding, robotics, or make something the world has never seen. Faculty can also mentor students. Matching up this week, there's group mentoring at noon to 4 p.m. Friday, September 29th. It's virtual and at West Loop. And there's the Inventathon Hackathon at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, October 29th. That's also virtual and at West Loop. And check out our post after the show for more info.
Right. And recipes for success, student life tips. Several virtual workshops are coming up to assist students in improving skills or studying needs to lead to the grades that they want. So coming up, we have test taking strategies Thursday, October 5th at 2 p.m. That's going to be virtual on Teams. And you can check our post after the show for more information on that.
Yep. And HCC is planning its fall convocation, so register today. It's mandatory for staff and faculty, and that is 9 to 11 a.m. Friday, October 6th. That's next Friday at NRG Arena. Check out our post after the show for registration information.
All right. And then we have Team Tough Cookie, Susan Komen Race for the Cure. So join HCC Team Tough Cookie for the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure Breast Cancer Awareness Walk. The first to sign up get a t-shirt. So contact Ashley Rhodes for more information. That's on Saturday, October 2nd. And you can check out our post after the show for Ashley's email.
Yeah, and we have faculty exhibition, art exhibition, Converging Ground Level North and Northeast. This collection of paintings, drawings, and mixed media digital artwork is by faculty member Elizabeth Depew. This is one of several faculty exhibitions now open around the HCC system, and that is going on through November 3rd at HCC Northline Gallery, and it is free. So if you're interested, we'll have that information after the show for the link to register.
All right. And registration is still open for smaller semester, though fall is second start is even full swing. Smaller, more intensive semesters are still available, and all courses are offered in person and online. We have online anytime with no established class meetings times unless listed. Online on a schedule, so the meeting time is set and course meets online. Our hybrid classes, lecture class meets partially face-to-face, partially virtually. Of course, in person, face-to-face courses with the traditional meeting patterns at various campus locations, and hybrid lab. So those are our laboratory, our studio classes. And to learn more about HCC programs, start dates, and options to cover costs, go to hccs.edu/apply.
Yep. And coming up tomorrow is Film Friday, and next week we'll continue our celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, including a favorite Tex-Mex spot in Richmond called La Cucina. But don't forget, there will be no up to the minute on Convocation Day, which is next Friday, when all faculty and staff is expected to attend. So be sure to register. Montrose, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your interview skills.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Up to the Minute.